So hello, welcome to day 3 of Wellbeing Week in Law. My name is Sarah Reef and I'm the chair of CLA's Health and Wellness Committee. And today's focus is Engage and Grow Occupational Health. And we are very lucky to have two members of our Health and Wellness Committee, Greg Dorst from the other bar and Michelle Harmon from the Lawyer Assistance Program, here to talk to us generally about the program, any questions that you might have, and really give you the background for either yourself or colleagues that might need to participate in either one or both of these programs. So thank you both for being here today and all the participants for joining us. So I'm just going to start generally, and I'll start with Greg for just give us the sense of what the other bar is.
Sure. The other bar as an organization and as a group of lawyers with a mission provides peer support for lawyers who are recovering from substance use disorder or any sort of addictive disorders. And so we have a platform which includes meetings linking to professionals outside of the other bar, generalized support from the community of lawyers who are a part of the other bar. The other bar, just for context here, was started as a nonprofit organization in 1973 before there was a lawyer's assistance program or any thought to lawyer well-being or lawyer wellness. And it was brought into existence because it was clear that a lot of lawyers were struggling with alcoholism. And there didn't seem to be any place for them to go to find some sort of support so they could save lives and careers on their own. So it became the mission of the other bar back in 1973 to provide a space where lawyers could actually get the support that they need. And sometimes that includes referring people out to other organizations, maybe 12-step programming, maybe Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, or to professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, or to now we have the Lawyers Assistance Program. So we refer out a lot of our people to the Lawyers Assistance Program because they need sometimes a little bit more than just peer support. So we provide peer support through the operation of about 30 meetings throughout the state of California. And you know, it's quite a task to operate 30 weekly meetings throughout the state of California. And it's a task because you have to let people know that they're out there. You have to let people know what they're about. And you have to remove some of the fear that they might have around, you know, their identity being leaked to the general public or to the lawyer world, because we make our living on our reputation. And it's best that we keep everything that's said in the meetings, and the identity of the people that show up for those meetings in the meetings as well. So everybody who shows up for these meetings, this peer support, are in recovery. Some of us are a little more vocal about that. I'm a little bit more vocal about that. I have 23 years of sobriety. It ranges from 1 day to 40 some odd years. We have just an entire group of supportive, caring lawyers who have various degrees of experience. So really, it's started as peer support, and it has brought on a great deal more in the way of resources and ability to connect people with the right people, so that and the right organizations, so that they can begin the journey of recovery.
Great. I do have some follow-up questions, but I'll let Michelle first because they'll probably coincide. So I'll let Michelle first talk about the Lawyer Assistance Program.
Okay. Well, compared to the other bar where the LAP has only been around about 20 years now, and it was conceived originally as part of the discipline process with the state bar. So the idea was that the California State Bar, for those who are unaware, is the only state in the country that has its own state bar court. So we have our own court and judges that are not employees of the state bar, but who are appointed to deal with the discipline matters with attorneys in California. And the idea was to have a program for attorneys who have substance use problems and mental health problems that were related to whatever they did that is leading to their discipline, for them to be able to have diversion for those problems, come to the LAP in order to get support, get referrals for treatment, and have some monitoring so that they can tell the court that they're doing what they say they're doing as their recovery. In exchange for that, they would have a lower level of discipline. And the program has expanded to now include voluntary services also. So we have people in the program who are not part of discipline. It's also expanded to include people who are bar applicants who are not yet admitted, but who are expecting or who already have problems with their moral character application because of arrests that are substance related or things in their past that they might get referred to us by admissions. So we have a very structured program. We have clinicians who work with us. This is also a difference from the other bar because it's not peer support. There are aspects of that, but all of the staff are licensed clinicians who generally would be interacted with, and they will do an assessment. By the way, it's all funded by member fee, or actually our funding is the same, by licensing fees. And so there is no fees for any of the services that are provided by the LAP staff either. Of course, we make referrals out, and so those sources already have their own fees, but people can come to us for no fee, get an assessment by one of our clinicians. We'll go through their history with substances, with mental health symptoms, with their careers, with family, whatever else might be going on with them. And then that clinician will make some recommendations to provide them the best support. That could include, depending on the reasons they're here, it could include abstinence-based self-help group meetings. Maybe the other bar will refer people to the other bar, to AA, to NA, things like that. It could involve referrals to a treatment program, inpatient or outpatient treatment, to an individual therapist, doctors for medication evaluation or continued medication management, and our LAP support group. So the LAP support group is the core of the program, which is the part that we really get the most feedback about, that is so important to people, because it's a unique scenario where attorneys and bar applicants and law students can come in to a group that is also facilitated by a licensed clinician and talk about what's going on with them, talk about the problems they have with the state bar, and talk about their recovery with peers. So similar to the other bar, it's not open generally to anybody who's in that clinician's practice. It's only open to people who are in the LAP. Also, we have, so because we're able to provide this monitoring aspect of it, we're able to report to admissions or to the state bar court whether people are complying with what has been recommended for them. But because people liked the groups so much, we also have what we call the support aspect of the program. So people are able to come just to the LAP group, still come for the assessment, get the recommendations from our clinicians, but we're not monitoring to make sure people follow through with it or not. They're welcome to do whatever they want to and whatever they feel is appropriate. And but that also gives them access to the LAP support group. And we've got people who come to those just for the first 3 groups, which they can attend for free. And we've had people who have been coming since almost the beginning. I mean, we've got people who've come for over a decade because they just find it supportive and they like it. And then we also have a couple of other less intensive services that are also administered by the LAP. Anybody who's eligible for the LAP, so current attorneys, former attorneys, bar applicants, law students, is also eligible for 2 free career counseling sessions and 2 free individual sessions, which just call our office, and we have contracted therapists in the community. So it used to be more relevant to find somebody in your area who you can start individual counseling with. Now it's all done virtually anyhow. And also the career counseling. The career counseling is not so much, it's not like headhunting, but it's people who are experienced working with attorneys. They also know about the, sorry. Greg, why don't you take it from here? I'll pick up in just a moment.
Molly to Greg, we were all expecting our pets to make an appearance, but kids too. So Greg, one of the things that you mentioned that I think is always the sort of forefront of everyone's mind when they're looking at either the lawyer assistance program or the other bar is the confidentiality aspect. And, as you said, as lawyers, we have big egos and identity, and that's what we identify ourselves as. And so I think there is always this fear of who's going to know I'm calling, who's going to know I'm participating. And my footnote to that is, especially now during this pandemic when everything is remote. So you guys are mentioning support groups. If those are happening remotely, how do you go about, sort of providing that level of care when, people might have to be on a Zoom or something like that. So Greg, I'll let you take that
Yeah,
first.
well, for both our programs, Sarah, confidentiality is key. One of the main barriers that lawyers have regarding the recovery process is that they're afraid that their reputation is going to be tarnished in some way, shape, or form. That clients will find out that that they need help or that they've accessed help. Clients will find out, the general public will find out, and it's a scary process. And so we remove that barrier. We remove it by guaranteeing absolute confidentiality. We obviously don't allow outside members to come to our meetings. We don't allow non-lawyers, although we do have law students and judges who come to the meetings, but we don't allow non-lawyers to participate in our meetings because we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with this level of confidentiality that we've developed. So it's absolutely true that the other bar doesn't share information with the Lawyers Assistance Program, and the Lawyers Assistance Program does not share information with the other bar. We are absolutely separate in that people can access our services without thinking or believing that the Lawyers Assistance Program or the state bar will know who they are, and people can access the Lawyers Assistance Program without leaking any information to outside groups like the other bar. We are a nonprofit organization that is not under the auspices of the state bar. We operate independently. We do a lot of work that coincides with one another. The idea of peer support is not brand new, but it is really ramping up because it makes really good sense to have people who have gone through the same issues help others to move into that process and through that process as well. And then they can become the helpers as they start to gain some traction in their recovery. So yeah, all of that is important to understand at the ground level. What happened this last year with COVID was really a tough situation for us initially. All of the locations where we had meetings were shut down. We had to take our meetings onto the Zoom platform and have them all transferred to online meetings. And so there are two consultants for the other bar that handle these kinds of things, the meetings, outreach to organizations like bar associations and law firms and any other group that might be interested in hearing about this that's lawyer related. So we brought all of our meetings to this platform, and we have a very confidential system of handing out links only to people directly through me or directly through the Northern California consultant. So we don't have them posted on outside websites. We don't have them posted anywhere where you can get Zoom bombed or whatever you want to call it, or have people come in and peek in to the meeting to see who might be there. So we've kept it quite confidential. And we've found that this ability to have people access us, the other bar, for initial help and fellowship and community support is enhanced by the idea they don't have to hop in their car and drive somewhere and show up physically. It is easy for me to provide a link to somebody and have them come right into this room and meet some people who can help them to do what it is that they need to have done. And so we've noticed, based upon this change, that we have more people participating, and they're coming from all over the place. There are some problems with in-person meetings that are obvious. If you live out in a rural area, it's going to take you an hour to drive to a meeting. maybe even longer. If you live in this city, it's going to take you an hour and a half, maybe, to go 20 miles, depending upon what time of day it is. And honestly, people are much more likely to show up in the Zoom portal because of the ease and comfort of it than they are hopping in their car at 4 p.m. to hit a 6 o'clock meeting. So although it's been difficult to marshal in-person meetings to a full Zoom network, it's been worth it. Now, some of these meetings are going to remain on this platform. Others are going to go back to their original locations, and some are going to be hybrid. We have meetings at certain treatment centers that do a lot of work with professionals, and they've already set up the ability to have people who live in the area show up in a room that has a large audio visual capability, bringing outside people into that room as well. So that's kind of a hybrid option. So COVID was demanded we look outside the box for some new ideas as to how to do this kind of thing. And it has been really good because, I mean, I have done presentations around the country on issues of lawyer wellness, addiction, recovery, mental health issues. And, I've been places where I couldn't go because of problems with travel. So it's been a good thing, although it's been difficult for the rest of the world. Everybody's wanting to get back together, at least in some way. And the other bar provides that kind of thing too, which is very cool. I'll just hand this to you so that the audience knows this. But if people want to participate in women's retreats and men's retreats and family retreats, the other bar is for you. I mean, if you like the community of lawyers and judges and law students who help each other to stay sober one day at a time, then you have an opportunity to go to women's retreats that are held in some beautiful places. There's one each year in Malibu and one up in Danville, up north, and the same for the men. And we have different retreats for the men and different retreats for the women, but we have them. And we also have what's known as a networking, which allows the lawyers to bring their families if they want to bring their families. So yeah, there's a lot to do. I mean, the idea behind peer support and the development of a community to support people who are fresh out of recovery or in need of something more than just peer support initially, is that without a community, feeling alone and separated from the rest of the world, you're not going to make it. The science tells us that we have to have connection in this recovery process. And that's one of the reasons why the Lawyers Assistance Program provides groups, which is a big support. I hear all the time that they're wonderful groups. And we like the idea of being able to create community all over the state of California to help people to maintain their sobriety. Because if you go to treatment, any treatment, and you come out and you're not supported, then you're just going to fall back to the same way of being that you existed in before. So we don't see much forward progress when people do that. So that's the idea of peer support, and that's what we do, and that's how COVID's changed us.
Thank you, Greg. And Michelle, I think as Greg pointed out, the other bar is separate, wholly separate from the state bar, and the Lawyers Assistance Program is not. So do you find, well, first tell us how that, sort of wall stays up between your program and the state bar, and, how do you assure people that if they do come to your program that, their name's sort of not going to get out there?
Yes. Two things. I want to talk about the confidentiality, and I wanted to go back before my
Yes.
was running through here. I was talking about the career counseling, very important, but what I was reminded by when Greg was talking about the confidentiality aspect is we also have judges, employers, legal employers, people who are concerned about another attorney call us. And what we're able to do is have one of our clinicians make a phone call to the person they're concerned about, either say that somebody called us anonymously, or can say this person called with a concern about you, and tell them what we offer. We can't do the same kind of physical interventions like they do with the other bar. Greg and David are able to actually drive over and take somebody to a meeting or take somebody to treatment if needed. And so we would need to call on them for that too. We're not able to do that, but we can certainly call and tell them all these other things that we offer. And so sometimes that's the way that people find out about the program. And that, of course, is really difficult to reassure people about the confidentiality of the program, because here's somebody from the state bar suddenly calling them. So we really try to work hard to reassure people the statute that created our program ensures confidentiality. Any information that our program obtains is not discoverable in any public records request or part of disciplinary hearing. If somebody comes into the program because they want us to be able to verify that they're sober and that they're complying with the program, they need to sign a release of information first before we even acknowledge that they're enrolled in the program. And so we really do have everything separate. Our computer system is separate. Our paper files are separate. In LA, we're in a separate building than the rest of the state bar, and it's very well respected at the state bar too. There aren't really even any requests for information about people in our program, because everybody knows that we're not going to give it to them unless we have a signed release of information. We'll just say we can't confirm or deny any knowledge of this person. So same thing with people who are coming to us for moral character reasons. We'll need to sign releases of information for us to be able to even acknowledge to admissions that they came into our program. But without that, it's completely confidential. I saw that there was a question here, which I wanted to answer because it was related about the costs. The question was about the 3 free sessions. After the 3 free, the groups are $250 a month that people would need to pay to the therapist who's running the group, because those are not state bar employees. We're contracted with other therapists, which is also the reason why people can be even more reassured of confidentiality, because we're all licensed clinicians who you're dealing with, and we have our own licenses on the line here of violating confidentiality. So we have a financial assistance program for people who might not be able to afford the $250 per month, and it can help pay for that. And let's see, did I hit all the topics? I feel like there was something else.
I think I brought something up that I'm not sure if you want to expand on it more, but certainly from, you mentioned Greg and sort of this physical going to somebody, but I assume a lot of your referrals do come from colleagues, family, friends that see somebody that needs help. So if I have that, person in my life and I'm going to call either one of your programs, what does that look like? What can you do for my colleague, friend, or family member that needs your services?
That is what I was going to say. People find out about it also through the outreach. Our outreach person would be so mad at me that I forgot to mention that part, because a lot of people do. She does MCLE presentations all over the state. Also, she goes to law schools to present at the school so that people will know that we're here. So we have people calling us because they heard about the program from the outreach. Their dean told them about they should come in here. Their attorney who's representing them with the state bar told them they should come here. We don't have really much contact or direct contact, at least with family members usually. So, so less of that probably than the other bar does have. And what we offer, all the things that I just mentioned, and the for lack of a better word, handholding, that there's somebody who's assigned as the case manager to each individual who can help them access different resources along the way. If they need help finding a bed in a treatment program, help finding the bed. This is where the other costs come in, because if you go to Betty Ford, you're going to be charged, or Betty Ford Hazelden now is going to be a different fee than if you go to like a sober living or a lower cost place. So they will have all of their own fees, but our clinicians can help access different types of financial resources and can help find sliding scale therapists and just different resources that people might need that we might think is appropriate for them.
Greg, how about for you? If someone gives you a call on behalf of somebody else, what does that look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say that the other bar is free for anybody who accesses any services. from the other bar. We're, as I said, a nonprofit organization, and we've been around for, coming up on 50 years. And we've been reasonably successful. We have helped a lot of lawyers whose families are incredibly grateful. We've helped a lot of firms whose support has been generous, and we appreciate that very, very much. We have an 800 number that is on our website, and we also probably can be accessed through even regular paper. You might come across a brochure of ours somewhere still, which has a 800 number on it. It's 1-800-222-0767, and that will connect you with David Mann or me. And it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a family member of a lawyer, or a partner, or an associate, or a secretary to, or a paralegal to. We're going to talk about what's going on. We're going to try and get as much information as we possibly can about the individual. And then if it looks like it's something that might be productive, we can actually come out to meet that person. I just hop in the car and go. And that doesn't matter whether it's the person's home or their place of business, the firm, or even meeting somebody in court. I've done that more times than I can count, after having received telephone calls from judges who are really, really concerned about lawyers who have, shown kind of a weight loss or weight gain, or they're looking a little disheveled, or not making it to certain court appearances when they should, or at all. And I get a call saying that this lawyer is scheduled to be in court. I think it's a problem that you guys might be able to take a look at and maybe help with. Would you mind meeting this lawyer in my courtroom? And I do that. And I'll just hop in the car and go. David will do the same. And so we get a chance to meet the lawyer somehow. You can't help the lawyer much by working with the family. You have to work directly with the lawyer, although the family needs support too, and we can guide them to support. We have programs that key directly with on family members. Alateen, Al-Anon, that will deal with people who are in the family who need to learn how to handle their alcoholics so that they don't go down with them. So we can help them find support services as well. But we just go out and do it. We just go make a cold call to court or to the office, or maybe even get on the telephone today in today's environment, and just let them know that there are people who are interested in their well-being, without telling them who they are, because we won't do that. We will not give up the identity of the person that made the call to us, but just that people care about them, and that there's a way out. You don't have to feel this way anymore. You don't have to deal with these problems anymore. And I'd be happy to take them to a meeting so that they can start that process. So I have to tell you that it oftentimes plants the seed that brings people in. Maybe not on that day, because quite frankly, a cold call can produce some anger in the person who answers the phone. Who told you? What's going on? Why are you calling me? They're lying to you. All of that kind of stuff happens over the phone, but people call back, even if they're angry. And they call back because they realize that somebody's noticed their aberrant behavior, and they're not hiding it anymore like they thought they could. And so sometimes that plants the seed and brings them into the door. We just want an opportunity to meet them. We don't force anything down anybody. We don't have any agenda. We don't sell anything. We don't make money off of them. We're just here to support them. And as long as they know that we're here and can access us anytime, we think that we have at least done our outreach job. So that's the way I would deal with somebody who got a hold of me about their alcoholic lawyer or judge or law student. So, and it's really great to have the benefit of being able to hop in the car and go. It's just a wonderful thing. I'm not tied to a building. And so, so I get to do that. So I'm I haven't practiced law since 1997, but at that juncture, I made the switch to healthcare and became an addiction specialist and started to operate drug courts in Los Angeles County, and then moved off to become a CEO at mental health and substance use disorder hospitals. So I'm equipped with not only the law degree, but I'm equipped with a background in substance use disorder and mental health. So when I meet somebody, they see a lawyer who not only knows about addiction, but has struggled with his own. And so we have a nice conversation, generally speaking, every time I go make one of these personal outreach calls or a telephone call. So yeah, those connectors usually help a lot.
So I want to ask, if I am, say I make the phone call and I recognize I need help, what does that look like for me, right? Are there certain requirements or, expectations in either of your programs if I pick up the phone and say, help, I need help? Greg, do I have to attend a certain amount of meetings? Do I have to talk to you a certain amount of time? And how do you sort of, what does it look like to join?
So there are calls that come to me that are informational, meaning they're just sort of feeling it out. They may not be alcoholic, they may not be addicted to anything, they may not have a mental health issue, but they sort of sense that something is wrong. And so they want to kind of feel the landscape a little bit, and so they'll talk about their issues a little bit, maybe not full disclosure, but we get to talk about what some of the solutions are out there. So, it's not always somebody who is, has been drunk in a motel for, a month and can't make it to work or make their court appearances. It's sometimes people who just feel that there's something wrong. They're not doing the best job that they could do. And they want to know if there's something that we can do to help them get better. And the answer to that is, yeah, sure. I mean, you can join a community of people who just do things one day at a time. I mean, that's what we do. We meet together and we talk about issues and we talk about problems that we have with practicing the law, with family issues, with relationships, but we also provide solutions to one another. And some of those things can be had, even if you're not an alcoholic, you just have a desire to stop doing some of these things that have been bothering you. You don't have to admit that you're an alcoholic. Nobody's asking you to do that. You don't have to admit that you're an addict. Nobody's going to ask you to do that either. But you will find out a lot about yourself and hear some potential solutions from people who have actually done that. So I think that's what peer support is all about, Sarah. And so, we're not, I'm a professional in this industry, but I don't practice through the other bar. I just have a little bit of insight as to what people may need and what I call $1 million Rolodex, which means I know just about everybody in the industry. And so if there's somebody that needs help, I can probably hook them up with people who might be a great fit for them, because I've been doing this for so long. So that's kind of the answer I have for you. Did that answer your question?
Yes, for sure. So
Okay.
It doesn't sound like I have to attend X amount of meetings or be a
Nope.
part of a certain group, or the women's group or the men's group, or it is, here's what we can give you. We are here for you. Come, maybe you'll nudge them in certain directions, provide information for them, but there's no requirements to be and use your services.
Right. And nobody's going to call you back and harangue you and say, you haven't been to a meeting in a while.
Right.
No, I mean, you get to do what you get to do. And we find out in participation that we're responsible for our own lives. And so we start making better decisions and we have better outcomes. So that's kind of what we do.
And Michelle, how about for the lawyer assistance program? If I, participate in that program, do I have to check certain boxes? And I guess there's the state bar, if they're requiring you to do certain things, yes. But if I just call in on my own, what does that look like?
Very similar to what Greg was describing, perhaps expanded a little more to the mental health side of it, because we're not only dealing with people who are in recovery, we've got people who have mental health symptoms, not even necessarily rising to the level of a diagnosis, but sometimes yes. Really commonly, the attorney, actually the depression and anxiety are the highest levels of mental health symptoms that we see in attorneys and applicants who call us. And often, it will be an attorney who shows up to work or turns on their computer and stares at a blank screen, cannot get themselves to answer phone calls, just cannot get themselves to answer emails. And then things start spiraling as work builds up and stuff doesn't get responded to. So we have people calling in the state of, I don't know what to do, which is where the LAP groups also can be really helpful, because there's other people in the groups who are attorneys and people who can help the person be accountable. Somebody, we'll have somebody else in the group say, go home and check your emails, or answer 5 emails and then call me back and let me know how it went. And so you get the peer support aspect and the professional aspect. As far as we're concerned as a program, it's completely voluntary. People can enroll when they want to, they can withdraw when they want to. Like you said, if people are coming in because they want us to verify their attendance, that's a different story. Then we will be following through to make sure they're doing it so we can verify. But from a simple informational phone call to find out what we do, to coming in for a few free sessions and then leaving, that's fine. There's no specific commitment that we ask for at all.
Okay, and I know we do have a few questions. I want to make sure we have time to get to them all. So I love this last one, is what are some of the success stories? So either one of you want to answer that? You can give an example of how your programs have worked for the benefit of a lawyer.
Sure.
Take that.
I will. I'll start with just what I consider to be a real interesting factual, without disclosing any names, without disclosing any information that people can, work back into some sort of a identity of the person issue. But I had an occasion not long ago to seek out an attorney who was not making court appearances. And the first thing I did was try and find his office, and I found that he had been evicted from his office and he wasn't there. So I knocked on a couple of doors around the location where his office was, and they said, well, I think I know where he is. And I got a little information about where he might be, and turns out it was in a parking lot behind a supermarket. And I drove on over there, and he was living in his car behind this supermarket, and he had fallen on tremendously hard times, and it was as a result of drug addiction, although he wouldn't admit it. He was not going to tell me anything until we started sharing some stories about what can happen and how much worse it could even get than it had been. And so he finally admitted to me that he was doing some things that he knew were compromising his health and his ability to practice law. And we made a decision right then to hop in the car and head off to a local treatment center. And it just so happened that I had a relationship with a local treatment center, and we got him in that day, got him into a local treatment center that day. And he did 90 days there. Now, he was a little concerned. There's a little barrier for him. He didn't want to do this because he actually had one client still had one active client, and needed somehow to make sure that appearance or appearances were being covered while he was in treatment. And so, the other bar's filled with lawyers, and we can usually find a way to make special appearances for people who need to relieve themselves of those kinds of barriers. And we also have what we call a shot of sobriety, which is a little fund we set aside for people who don't have any money at all. For lawyers who don't have any money, we can get them started on the recovery front with that fund. And so we were able to do that for him, and he stayed 90 days. When he got out, I picked him up and took him to his first meeting of the other bar. And I remember this so vividly because, and this wasn't long ago, it was pre-COVID, but going to his first anniversary at another bar meeting where he received a one-year chip and a birthday cake, and people were there to share about his progress. It was unbelievable. I mean, here was a man who'd put on 60 pounds, was wearing a beautiful suit, had opened up 2 offices and had a thriving practice. And, you know, it all started with a telephone call, and he wasn't even ready to do it yet. You know, I mean, he was still in that denial phase, but was at least aware enough to recognize that things could get worse. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff we can do. You know, what happens most of the time is something a little less dramatic. You know, I'll hop in the car and go pick up somebody and take them to a meeting, or tell them that I'll meet them there, or meet them in the portal nowadays, you know, and we show up a little early and we get a chance to talk and do some things that, you know, that actually sound a little bit like brief interventions, you know, but it really is helpful. And so that one story, I think, was touching for me, and I won't forget that, because, you know, this truly was an instance where he was on the brink of, well, the next thing for him was to be arrested.
Right.
And the next thing after that was for him to lose his license. And the next thing after that was for him to die. So he was on the brink of all of that kind of thing happening. And lo and behold, you know, the Phoenix effect, you know, springing from the ashes of your previous life. So yeah, those are really good stories. I like that. I like those things when they happen. And so, yeah, there you go.
Michelle, anything that you can share of what you've, you know, encountered in your time at the Lawyer Assistance Program?
What I really like is we, you know, we do have lots of people who are mandated to be here because they either from admissions or for the state bar court, although actually that's not quite mandated. People can choose whether they want the alternative discipline or not. They can go the regular discipline route and not deal with us at all. But if they choose the alternative discipline program, they're required to come into the LAP, and they're required to stay for a while. For it's generally a minimum of 3 years. So that's a long time to be able to be with somebody and be able to see the changes that can happen. And oftentimes people, they want to come in because they there's the carrot, but they don't love the idea of recovery. They don't love the idea of the stuff that we're asking them to do. So so at the end of the time before somebody successfully completes LAP, we ask them to write just a letter basically that says how they've made changes, what's changed about their time that they've been in the LAP. And of course, my favorite ones are the people who were so angry at the beginning and hate it and say, and no, it's not that they forget. They remember, I hated this at the beginning and I didn't want to do this, and I didn't want to do specifically X, Y, and Z, and it saved my life. And I'm really glad that I ended up being here. That's definitely my favorite part.
Powerful. We've got one other question, and that is, how does the random drug testing program work? I'm assuming there is that with the Lawyer Assistance.
Yeah, I don't think the other bar does testing because you're not monitoring people. So we contract with a company called FS Solutions, and they do the testing. It's a random system. So the idea is that people don't know when they're going to be tested. They need to call into the system every morning, and it will give you a message if you need to test that day, yes or no. And if yes, people have 2 options. It used to be really just urine testing, but since COVID and people not wanting to go out, especially to like urgent cares and those kind of places where there are sick people, we were able to get it set up to do oral fluid collection at home. So it's a video collection. They'll schedule a time with a monitor to sit in front. You know, you need to have certain things, bottle of water, and you need to have like show them nothing's in your mouth. You do the swab, put it, they watch you seal it, and drop it in the mail. So people don't have to leave their houses at all to do that testing.
Can I ask, is that something that is always just a requirement when you're, you know, sort of following what the state bar through the ADP issue, or is that something you suggest maybe this might help you, you know, sort of stay on track or accountability to get randomly drug tested?
It's both. For the people that are required to come and we're monitoring them, it'll be a requirement if they're here for recovery related reason, if it's only a mental health reason. And often at the beginning, we'll have people test just diagnostically, of course, tell us anything they want to, and it doesn't mean that we won't get a test back that shows, cocaine or something. So we might do that at the beginning. But if it turns out the person's here for mental health, we don't have them do the testing. If we need to be monitoring them, they'll do the testing. And for people who are not being monitored, we'll often recommend it. And there are some people who choose to do it voluntarily because they know that it helps keep them honest and it helps keep them on track. And there's everyday accountability of needing to remember to call into the system and remembering what you're doing here. So I wouldn't say it's the majority of the people who are here voluntarily, but there are a handful of people who are choosing to do the testing.
Okay. And I know, Greg, we got some questions in advance, which I don't have. Do you or Michelle have those two?
I do. This is one for, this would be for Michelle. It's what percentage of clients are in the LAP without having been ordered by the state bar court?
Well, so that is specific because being ordered by the state bar court doesn't really order people to come, but they will give them the opportunity if what they did that they're in front of the state bar court to deal with is related to a substance use or mental health problem. Give them the opportunity for the alternative discipline program. But like I said before, nobody has to do that. So I'd say maybe a quarter of the people in the program come because they either want to establish that they would be eligible for ADP. So maybe they're not at the point that the court even knows that they're coming yet, but they know that they have a few arrests and they know that it's coming down the pike. So they'll get started with us sooner. And then another quarter, maybe more of bar applicants who know that they're coming, that they're either referred by admissions for a specific period of time, or that they know that there's going to be a problem with their moral character application. And so they're coming to start establishing a track record of sobriety sooner.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who come to other bar meetings who are actually in the Lawyers Assistance Program for purposes of establishing a track record or for purposes of lessening any potential discipline that they might receive, or for help establishing their moral characters so that they can become admitted into the bar. Now, I think that they're magnificent ways to get people to take a look at their real issues, because without being somehow motivated to do that, most people won't take a look at what's going on with them. They won't take a look at some of the damage that's occurred as a result of their drinking or drug using or mental health issues, and they'll just motor on and ignore it. But when there's some sort of action that can be taken by the bar, or when there's something that can be denied them because they haven't shown that they're fit to practice, then they move into these spaces and learn something about themselves. I can't tell you how many people who have come into the other bar and stayed, who came in under those circumstances, and they just, they raise their hands and say that, between the Lawyers Assistance Program and the other bar, my life has been saved, and I don't think I ever would have been practicing law had this not been the case. And so they continue to access all of the meetings they can go to and all of the fellowship that we can provide them in a community of support that we have. So yeah, those are really neat. I consider those to be success stories, big time success stories. And that is sort of a success story that is a collaboration between the Lawyers Assistance Program and the other bar, because the Lawyers Assistance Program sent them to us for peer support, and we may have sent them to the Lawyers Assistance Program because they were having these kinds of problems that may involve discipline down the road. So, that's a great collaborative effect. And the fact that we do two different things is really an important understanding, so that you can see the difference. One provides peer support, the other one is within the state bar organization itself, doing the things that we can't do, like monitoring people and testing, mandating testing. So Yeah, it's a good marriage in the sense that we're providing sort of a continuum of care that makes sense. And most professions don't do that. You see, I really believe, I truly believe that a profession that cares about its members is a worthwhile profession. You know, that a profession that cares about the health and wellness of its members has just an additional level of consciousness there that that will make it a, an organization of integrity. And I'm really glad that the State Bar does that.
I don't,
Yeah,
are there, go ahead,
I-
Michelle.
I just want to add to that. I totally agree with what Greg is saying, and I think that especially for people who use both of our services, there's just some wonderful life-changing stories. With we've got 4 clinicians who are employed by the program, in addition to myself, but 4 who are actually doing the case management part of it, with 250,000 attorneys in the state, and I don't know, probably thousands. I can't even estimate right now how many thousands of students and bar applicants would also be eligible for the program. Even if everybody decided to access us, we couldn't do it. We couldn't. And so it's not so much my priority to say, everybody come to the LAP. It is a great program. If it works for you, this is where you should be. But if you need support, get it someplace else. It's not that we're so invested in it needing to be here with us. If 250,000 people wanted the support, I don't want it all to be from us because we couldn't handle that. But get it somewhere. There's so many resources out there. The Other Bar is a great one that's attorney specific, but even if it's not attorney specific, there's other totally free self-help type groups. There's of course treatment programs for all kinds of different issues, and individual therapists are abundant in California. And this is a great time to do it because you don't even have to leave your house.
So I'm not sure if there are any other questions that were given in advance, Greg, or was that the only
Yeah,
one?
there was one more question that
Great.
was given in advance, and it's an interesting one because it goes to the issue not necessarily of abstinence, but of decreasing the amount of usage. Are there resources for people who think they might be using alcohol or marijuana or other substances more than they'd like to, but don't believe that they're alcoholic or addict? And that's an interesting question because a lot of the things that we do when we talk about recovery are focused on abstinence. I mean, you can't pass a drug test in the lawyer's assistance program unless you're abstinent, because you can't just say, I'm here to only use once a day and prove that anything is happening that's moving them toward their goal. So it's a difficult situation, and sometimes those things are behavioral in nature. We have to start setting boundaries. The person has to start setting boundaries, or start working on their addictive disorder in ways that make sense, like bringing into their sphere activities that are diametrically opposed to the using of drugs and alcohol, to kind of help people to move away from that, to start building some new habits that are good for them as opposed to not so good. So this is a tough one, because if you come into a meeting of the Other Bar and start talking about how you only used once or twice this week, some heads are going to turn a little bit, because most of us here believe that there's a way to live comfortably without the need for those things that change the way you feel from the neck up. I mean, most people can take it or leave it. We call them normies. They don't have to have a drink. They don't have to have a drug, and they can change the way they feel emotionally, in other ways. So we kind of help people to move out of their addictive disorders as opposed to cut down so that they're more comfortable. But, if your desire is just not to use today, that's fine. If your desire is just not to drink today, I mean, you belong with us. And so if you have some fun and you start doing some good things as a result of hanging around us, then that's great. You probably won't use. You might even choose abstinence for yourself. Or you might find some other places where you can access Rational Recovery or Life Ring or some other organizations that help you to decrease your use as opposed to stopping it altogether. So there are a lot of different ways to do this. Not everybody fits into the same, size suit. So, we welcome anybody who has questions like this, anybody who has issues like this. It may be that, that question is really, I use too much, I need to stop. And it's disguised as, I just like to cut down a little bit because, it's a big admission that you can't stop. It's a big admission when you're really asking for help to quit. And some people aren't ready to even make that admission yet. So we welcome all comers. We're going to have the conversation. We're going to see whether or not you enjoy the meetings. We're going to see whether or not people might have some solutions for you. We're not just going to say, yeah, it's not for us. Don't know how successful they're going to be. That's up to them. And we may even have some resources to give them. So that's my answer to that question. I don't know if you have that happening in the LAP or not, Michelle.
Well, our focus is a bit more broad, right? Because it's not only recovery. So that's why we have the free assessment. So if somebody just wants to talk to a clinician, you don't have to come saying I have any problem at all. It could be I'm just really stressed out, or I keep having these arguments with my spouse and I just want to talk about what's going on with you, and then the clinician will make the recommendations and help figure out the direction, what path to go on to help with whatever the issue might be, whether it's technically a diagnosable mental health issue or not. And also the LAP groups are really good for that because they're support groups that are not focused on a certain topic. So you have people all in the same group who might be there for depression, anxiety, substance use, relationship problems. So you can get very interesting mirrors when you're looking at what other people are going through and seeing how that could relate to your own life. So yes, if somebody who doesn't know whether they meet the criteria, doesn't know if what is going on is actually a problem, but is uncomfortable with something in life, yeah, this would definitely be a place to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get in, get that assessment, sounds like.
Sarah, I want to throw a plug in for the well-being committee and the things that are being done through the CLA around well-being for lawyers. Because, from my perspective as an addiction professional, as well as a lawyer, the well-being sounds a lot like prevention. If you can live a life that's satisfying and full and filled with all of the things that will allow you to be healthy in mind, body, and spirit, then you're less likely to need something to change your attitude, a head fix, something that is dangerous. And so it sounds a lot like prevention. It's a wonderful thing. And, there's a friend of mine that is actually putting together a lawyer well-being library. It's going to be accessible before long. It'll be coming online. It's going to have every resource possible, including assessments and articles and videos and podcasts and all of the things that might be able to help people to understand where they are in this process and what they might need. And I think that that's really a good thing, to have every resource available. Today we have, and we're doing it today on this webinar. We're bringing new ideas to people who might not have recognized that these things are available. You can access any information on the web. Anything that can be known can be known. And so use it as a resource. Find the YouTube videos that might help you to access greater well-being in areas such as mental health and substance use disorder. So I think you're doing a great job. I think that we as members of the committee are doing some brand new innovative work, and I'm proud of it.
Well, and it's so wonderful that we're just talking about it, right? There was just no discussion of it really. Yes, if you were an addict, maybe, but now, we're sort of able to get out there, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get educated on it. And if you have mental health issues, you have addiction problems, you have, runs the gamut. there's going to be a resource out there, and hopefully our committee's, providing that resource for you all too. So closing thoughts, we are at the end of our hour. Thank you both very much, but I am hoping I think Lauren was putting some stuff in the chat on how to contact if someone does have, want to reach out to either one of you with some questions or to your program. How would they do that?
For the other bar, probably the best thing to do is to go to the website, www.otherbar.org, otherbar.org, otherbar.org. And all of the numbers and all the information about the organization, how to contact me, my bio's on it. David Mann's bio is on it. I mean, it'll give you all the information regarding the meetings that we put on every day of the week. And it's a great place to start. And then use that number and give me a call or give David a call and, see if you can't get a little bit more information and see whether or not there may be something else we can add to this plan.
And Michelle, is that the same good website or?
Toll-free number 877-LAP, the number 4 help, 877-LAP 4 help. And of course, the state bar website is calbar.ca.gov. You can click on the little magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner and just search for LAP, and it'll get you to all the information about LAP on contacting us.
Great. Well, thanks again to both of you for telling us about both of these very important programs. You guys are doing amazing work. And I know we'll talk to both of you again. So come back to the health and wellness page and you will see Michelle and Greg and their future and past presentations that they've done for the committee. So thank you both again.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Sarah, for moderating. We appreciate it. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye all.
Bye.